Welcome folks, Technivorous here. This is Cura. Now Cura is a 3D object slicing application. It's used in conjunction with your 3D printer to make almost anything. But how does it work? Stick around and find out. We'll go over each setting one by one, each in 5 minutes or less, and be sure to bookmark this playlist and hit that subscribe button. Please feel free to share, it helps us out a ton. And now without further ado, today on Cura settings in 5 minutes or less, 2021 edition. Technivorous channel is brought to you by these fine Patreon supporters. Check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/technivorous. Welcome back folks, I am Technivorous. We are going to jump right into this and discuss our ABS settings in this episode. So let's go up here and go ahead and just switch over to my ABS profile and we'll discuss what settings are important. I'm going to discard changes. Alright, so basically the main thing you're going to want to remember with ABS is obviously the print temperature. As always, it should be printed somewhere on your packaging or box. In this case, I have mine set to a generic 240, which is generally good in all ABS cases. The initial printing temperature, that's a problem. We actually want it to be way higher than that, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to 40 now. 240, excuse me, make sure that I save it. 235 would probably be okay. You can see that I raised my build temperature from 55 to 60, and if I want to go higher than that, I can. Actually, the higher the better, because we can trap some ambient heat next to the model and prevent warping and cracking that way. But 60 is a good place to start if you don't want to get the bed too hot. I think I'm going to jack mine up to 75, because I'm not using magnetic bed on this machine, so I'm not worried about slipping when it demagnetizes because of the heat, which doesn't happen as much as they say it can, but it is actually a possibility over a long period of time with sustained heat. The magnetism will come back, but if you're using a glass bed, you're going to want to go ahead and crank it up because you don't have to worry about that problem. The other thing that you want to worry about when printing with ABS is the cooling. You want to go ahead and click in here and make sure that Enable Print Cooling is turned off completely. We don't want the fan to turn on and start blowing on the printed parts because that'll cause a temperature variation, which will lead to warping and layer separation. So make sure your cooling is off. And while we're talking about the layer separation and warping, one of the most important things that you can do when printing on a machine like the Ender 3 and using ABS, and this machine doesn't come with an enclosure, it is an open air machine, so the air can flow by the model while the printing process is going on, and that can cause variations in temperature as well, and too big of a variation will lead to those cracks and warps we've talked about. One way around this with the open air machine is to use this experimental setting called the draft shield. You can see I have mine enabled here. This distance here is going to be how far away from the model it's actually printing. You can increase that distance to encapsulate more air in there, but the bigger the distance, the harder it is to keep the ambient or the warm air in that area, and the more travel time you're going to have. So 10 millimeters is a good distance. It's not going to interfere with the model, but it'll make sure I have air trapped in that tiny little pocket to keep the temperature about the same. That way my models don't split apart and warp. Other than that, there are really no super important ABS settings. Obviously, as with the other profiles we're talking about, you can go through and change the quality settings and things like that, and they will have an increase on your speed in your final model. But as far as the most important settings you're going to need to remember is obviously the temperature. You want your temperature in the right range for that filament, because if it doesn't start to flow properly, you won't get a proper model and you can back up your extruder and things like that. And the cooling, because that fan is going to be a killer. In addition to that, the other thing you want to remember is to try and use the draft shield whenever possible. It will use up more plastic, but it will save you plastic in the long run from failed prints that are separating on layers in between the actual model. So that's going to be it for the ABS profile. We're going to jump into TPU next. It's going to be fast and simple, so stay tuned for that video. Well, that's it guys, that's going to wrap up this video. If you've noticed the shirt, the merch is available. Go ahead and check out the Teespring merch link down below. It won't be available on a channel store until I reach 10,000 subscribers, and so far I am just about to hit 5,000. So it'll be a little while, a couple more months before you see this on the actual channel, but they are available now. I have a couple other designs. Feel free to pop over there and check them out, and know that any purchase through the Teespring site definitely helps to promote our site here and increase the channel's ability to make videos in the future. So we appreciate all your support. Don't forget to check out the Teespring link, check out our Patreon link, leave a like on this video, and hit that subscribe button because we have a lot more coming at you in the coming days.